I discovered my wife of 10 years was secretly laundering $250, $0 through our joint accounts to her lover while we were planning our dream house. Then she vanished with everything, leaving me facing a bitter legal fight over our property and savings. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife of 10 years turned out to be a complete liar and cheat. It all started with a gut feeling, then spiraled into something so much worse I still can't believe I didn't see it coming. The thing that hits me the hardest isn't just the betrayal, but the way she lied and manipulated everything like she was some kind of master illusionist. And the worst part, I only found out because I accidentally stumbled upon her secret life, something so crazy, I still wake up some nights wondering if it was all just a nightmare. Her name was Lisa. Beautiful, confident, the kind of woman who could charm her way out of any situation. We'd been married for 10 years, and honestly, I thought we had a good life. We bought a house, had 2 kids, and everything seemed normal, at least on the surface. But over the past few months, I noticed little things. She'd be on her phone more than usual, hiding her screen when I walked into the room. She'd take long showers, and when I asked about her day, she'd give me these vague, dismissive answers. I figured she was just stressed, maybe working late or dealing with something at her job. I didn't suspect anything serious until the night I found the bank statements. It was late, around 11 p.m., and I was looking for a document I needed for work. I opened our shared laptop, and out of curiosity, I checked our bank account online. That's when I saw it. Multiple transfers, large ones totaling around $250, $0. It was all going to some account I'd never seen before. I stared at that screen, my heart pounding. How could she do this? Why would she need to launder money through our joint account? I knew Lisa wasn't exactly squeaky clean, but I never imagined she'd be involved in something this huge. I started digging into the details. The transfers were made under different names, multiple small transactions to avoid suspicion. But the trail led to her ex, Mark. I remembered how she used to talk about him sometimes, how they had a special connection she insisted was just friendship. But after I found the money, I looked into his background. Turns out, Mark had a shady past, dodgy business deals, shady loans, the kind of guy who'd do anything for money. That's when my stomach dropped. Lisa was laundering money through our accounts to her ex-lover, who's probably using it to fund some illegal operation or shady side hustle. The moment I realized what was happening, everything changed. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she do this to me, to our family, and the worst part? She was acting so innocent, so dismissive when I confronted her. She said I was paranoid, that I was overreacting, that I was just jealous because she was working late and talking to her friends. She spun stories, lied through her teeth, and made me feel crazy for even suspecting her. But I knew better. That money wasn't just some side hustle. This was full-on criminal activity, and she was in the middle of it. I was furious but also heartbroken. How could my wife, the woman I loved and trusted, be involved in something so dark? I kept replaying everything she said, every lie I caught her in, and every time she looked at me with that fake smile. I realized I was sitting on a ticking time bomb, and I had to decide what to do next. Confront her again, call the police, or just cut my losses and walk away. But the truth was, I was already deep into her web of lies, and I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. I had no idea what the future held, but I knew one thing: I couldn't stay silent. I had to find out exactly how deep her deception went and what she was really involved in. That night, as I sat alone in our living room, staring at the glowing screen showing her secret transactions, I realized my life was about to change forever, and none of it was in my control anymore. The next few days were a blur of shock and disbelief. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, those fake smiles, the way she lied so effortlessly. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see the cracks in our perfect life. It was like I was living someone else's nightmare, except it was real, and I was the only one left to pick up the pieces. I started digging deeper into the bank statements, trying to piece together her pattern. The transfers to Mark's account were happening over the past 6 months, right around the same time she started spending more time, working late, or going out with friends. I found receipts for dinners, hotel stays, and even a few trips to some remote locations I'd never heard of. It was clear she was hiding something big, and I was determined to find out what. But what really pushed me over the edge was a text message I found on her phone. I was snooping, I admit it, but I needed answers. The message was from Mark, and it said, "The money's coming through, we're good for now." My stomach sank. She'd been lying to me for months, possibly longer. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively laundering money for him, probably helping him hide from authorities or fund some illegal enterprise. That was a line I never thought she'd cross. I confronted her that afternoon. I couldn't keep it bottled up anymore. She was in the kitchen making herself a cup of coffee, acting like everything was normal. I slammed the door behind me and I told her I knew everything. Her face froze for a second, then she started spinning her lies. "Oh, come on, Jason," she said, her voice dripping with fake innocence. "You're overreacting. It's all a misunderstanding. I was just helping Mark out with some financial stuff. He's in trouble, and I was trying to help him get back on his feet. You have to trust me. I'd never do anything to hurt you or the kids." She looked at me with those big, fake eyes, expecting me to buy her bullshit. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I told her I knew she'd been lying, that she'd been using our joint accounts as a personal ATM to support her illegal activities. I demanded she tell me the truth. What exactly was she doing? Who was she really working for? Instead of answering, she started crying, saying I was accusing her of things I didn't understand, that she loved me but was under pressure from Mark, that she was just trying to help him because he was desperate. That's when I realized she was a master manipulator, playing the victim even as she was deep in her own web of lies. I didn't buy her excuses. I was furious but also devastated. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. How could she betray me like this? How could she risk everything, our marriage, our family, our future, for some shady money and her ex? I wanted to scream, to break something, but I kept my composure. I told her I needed time to think, that I was going to get to the bottom of this, no matter what it took. That night, I stayed up late, poring over every detail I could find. I contacted a lawyer, started looking into how I could freeze our accounts, and even considered hiring a private investigator. I knew I had to act fast. The money was moving, and I suspected she might try to cover her tracks or even run away with everything. I felt betrayed, angry, and helpless all at once. What struck me most was her reaction when I threatened to go to the police. She snapped, telling me I was overreacting, that I was making everything worse, that I didn't understand what she was going through. She accused me of being paranoid, of ruining everything because I didn't trust her, but I knew better. She was lying, hiding something big, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not without a fight. As I sat there, realizing how deep her deception went, I couldn't help but feel a cold sense of dread. I was married to a woman who had betrayed everything we built together, and I was just starting to see how far she was willing to go. The shock was turning into determination. I had to find a way to stop her before she disappeared with all our savings, before she left me with nothing. The game was on, and I was ready to play it to the end, no matter how dirty it got. Over the next few days, I threw myself into action. I couldn't afford to sit around feeling sorry for myself or letting her manipulate the situation. I needed leverage, and I needed it fast. First, I contacted a who specialized in financial crimes and divorce law. I explained everything: the secret laundering, her lies, the large sums transferred out of our joint accounts. The lawyer was cold and pragmatic, which was exactly what I needed. He warned me that if she was involved in illegal activities, I could be dragged into legal trouble just by knowing about it. But he also said that freezing our joint accounts and starting the legal process would be the best way to protect what was left of our assets. I started gathering evidence, screenshots of the bank transactions, her texts, emails, anything that could prove her involvement. Meanwhile, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was planning her next move. I kept checking our accounts obsessively, trying to spot any suspicious activity. I also hired a private investigator, just to get a clearer picture of her whereabouts and her contacts. The pie was expensive, but I figured I had to do anything I could to stay one step ahead. Within a couple of days, the pie came back with some disturbing news. Lisa had been meeting with Mark in secret, visiting some rundown hotels and secluded spots. She was trying to cover her tracks, but it was clear she was deep into some shady dealings. I also found out that she had been withdrawing large sums in cash, probably to avoid digital trails. The more I learned, the angrier I got. This wasn't just infidelity. This was criminal behavior that could land her in real trouble if she wasn't careful. One night, I decided I needed to confront her again, not just with words but with proof. I set up a hidden camera in the living room, hoping to catch her in the act or get her to slip up. I knew it was a risky move, but I couldn't trust her anymore. Sure enough, a few hours later, she met Mark again. The conversation was tense. She was clearly nervous, glancing around to see if anyone was watching. They exchanged a few hurried texts, and she slipped out the door with a small bag in her hand. I watched everything unfold on my phone, feeling my blood boil. The next morning, I confronted her with what I had seen. Her reaction was immediate and defensive. She spun a new story, said Mark was just a friend, that she was helping him out because he was down on his luck, and that the money was for some business opportunity she was trying to help him with. She threw in some tears, claiming she was under so much pressure and that I didn't understand her struggles. But I wasn't buying it. I told her I knew about the laundering, about the cash withdrawals, about the secret meetings. Her face went pale for a second, then she started lying again, claiming she was only trying to save our marriage and that I was overreacting. That was the last straw. I felt a mix of disgust and heartbreak. How could she lie so convincingly? How could she betray me and our family like this? The woman I married, the woman I trusted with everything, had been living a double life, one where she cheated on me, laundered money, and manipulated everyone around her. I realized that I had been blind, but now I saw her true face. I told her she needed to leave, that I was done playing her game. She started crying harder, begging me to forgive her, saying she'd change, that she loved me. But I knew better. Love doesn't turn someone into a criminal. That night, I made the decision to file for divorce. I couldn't stay with someone who had lied and betrayed me so thoroughly. I was hurt, furious, and feeling completely shattered. But I also knew I had to protect what little was left of my sanity and our assets. The legal process was going to be messy, and I wasn't sure how much of her story was true or how much was just another lie to save herself. But I was determined to see this through, no matter how ugly it got. What's wild is how quickly everything unraveled. One day she was my wife, the woman I loved and trusted. The next she was a criminal in my eyes, gone without a trace, leaving behind chaos and betrayal. And yet through all of this I couldn't help but wonder, how did I miss all the signs? How did someone I thought I knew so well turn out to be this? This monster. The betrayal cut deep, but I knew I had to keep moving forward for my own sake and for my children's future. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything we built, no matter what it took. The days that followed were a whirlwind of chaos and planning. I was in full legal mode, trying to lock down our assets before she could do any more damage. The lawyer advised me to get a court order to freeze our joint accounts and to start proceedings for a divorce based on her infidelity and financial misconduct. That was the least of my worries, honestly. My main concern was preventing her from disappearing with the rest of the money, or worse, trying to hide her tracks even further. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on her movements through the private investigator. Every day, I learned a little more about her secret meetings, her cash withdrawals, her attempts to cover her tracks. She was panicked, I could tell. She was trying to clean up her mess, but she was doing it badly. I found out she had rented a storage unit, filled with boxes of documents, cash, and some jewelry she planned to take with her. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. I knew I needed to be ready for whatever her next move was. One afternoon, I decided I had to confront her again, face to face. I called her and told her I knew about her plans to run. She tried to deny everything, but I had enough evidence now to make her sweat. I told her I was going to the police if she didn't come clean. That's when she finally broke down. She admitted she was planning to leave with the kids, the money, everything, and start fresh somewhere else. She said she was sick of our boring life, sick of me, and that mark was her only way out. Her words hit me like a punch in the stomach. Her confession made me realize how far gone she was. She wasn't just a cheating wife anymore. She was a woman willing to risk everything: our family, her reputation, her freedom, for some shady money and her ex. I felt a mix of anger and despair. I couldn't believe I had trusted her for so long. I told her she wasn't going anywhere, that I'd stop her, and that I was going to make sure she paid for what she did. I also told her I'd call the police if she tried to leave with the kids or hide any more money. That night, I stayed up again, watching her through the security cameras. She was frantic, packing around the house, packing a bag. I called the lawyer and the police just to be prepared. I knew she was planning her escape, and I had to stop her before she vanished forever. I felt helpless, furious, and betrayed all at once. How could she do this to us? To her own children? It was like watching someone destroy everything we'd built in just a few months. Finally, the police arrived to serve her the court order to freeze our assets. She was furious, screaming, crying, throwing her fits, but it was too late. The money was now locked down and she couldn't access it. She tried to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. I watched her collapse in tears, realizing her plans were falling apart. For the first time in a long while, I felt a tiny spark of relief. Maybe now I could start to rebuild my life, free from her lies. The legal fight was just beginning, and I knew it would be messy. She was no longer the woman I thought I knew. She'd become a criminal, a liar, a manipulator who'd do anything to save herself. But I also knew I had to stay strong for me, for my kids. I couldn't let her take everything away from us. That night I sat alone in the house, staring at the empty space where she used to sleep. I felt empty, betrayed, but also strangely determined. I wasn't going to let her win. I was going to fight for what was left, no matter how ugly the battle got. The aftermath hit harder than I expected. Once the court order was in place, Lisa didn't just go quietly. No, she turned into a whirlwind of accusations, tears, and threats. She screamed at me that I was ruining her life, that I was a controlling monster for trying to keep her from her happiness. She told the kids I was breaking up the family, even though she was the one who'd been lying and laundering money behind my back. It was surreal how she could switch from crying to venomous rage so fast. I kept my distance. I knew she was trying to manipulate her way out of the mess, but I wasn't going to fall for it. I'd already seen her lie countless times. I was about to be fooled again. The lawyer advised me to document everything: her threats, her accusations, her frantic calls. I did just that, saving every message, recording every phone call, just in case she tried to spin some story to the police or the court. Meanwhile, the kids were confused and upset. Lisa was doing her best to play the victim, crying in front of them, telling them how mean I was for taking away her freedom. I knew I had to keep my composure. I explained to them as honestly as I could without damaging their trust that sometimes adults make bad choices, but that everything would be okay. I wanted them to see that I was trying to protect them, even if Lisa was acting out. The legal battle dragged on. She hired her own lawyer, and suddenly, the whole thing turned into a messy fight over custody, assets, and who was responsible for the mess. She tried to spin it as if I was the one ruining her life, claiming that I was controlling and manipulative. But I had the evidence now: her secret transactions, the cash, her meetings with Mark. I handed everything over to my lawyer, knowing it would be used against her if it came to court. One of the most shocking moments was when I found out she'd been secretly making plans to move out of state, with the kids, trying to start fresh somewhere she thought she'd be safe from the law and from me. She'd even looked into new jobs and rental places. I couldn't believe how cold and calculating she'd become. She was willing to abandon her family, all for her own escape, with no regard for what it would do to the kids or to me. I felt a deep sense of betrayal that cut through everything. I'd loved her once, or at least I thought I did. Now I saw her for what she truly was: a woman capable of lying, laundering money, and risking her family's stability just to run away. It was a punch to the gut. I wondered how I'd been so blind, how I'd missed all the red flags. But I also knew I had to stay focused. I was fighting for my children's future, for my own sanity, and for some shred of justice. Throughout it all, I realized how fragile trust is, how quickly it can shatter when lies pile up and secrets come to light. I trusted her with everything, our finances, our family, my heart, and she'd betrayed all of it. But I also learned that even in the darkest moments, you can find a way to stand up, to fight back, and to protect what matters most. It's not easy, and the pain doesn't go away overnight, but I know I'll come out of this stronger. And someday, maybe I'll even forgive her, though I doubt I'll ever forget. Now looking back, I realize how much this whole nightmare changed me. I used to think trust was the foundation of any relationship, that honesty was everything. Turns out I was naive. Lisa's betrayal shattered that illusion completely. I learned the hard way that sometimes the people you love the most can also be the ones who hurt you the deepest. It's a bitter lesson, but one I had to learn the hard way. The legal battle is still ongoing, but I've managed to keep most of our assets protected. The court has ordered her to stay away from the kids and to pay back the money she laundered. She's fighting it, of course, trying to deny everything, but I have enough evidence to hold her accountable. The divorce is finalized now, and I've moved into a new place, small, simple, but peaceful. It's the first time in months I feel like I can breathe again. The kids are adjusting, though it's hard. They miss their mom, but I've been trying to be strong for them. I tell them every day that they're loved, that their family might have fallen apart in some ways, but that doesn't mean they're any less important. I've started therapy to deal with the anger and betrayal, and I'm slowly rebuilding my life one day at a time. What I've learned from all this is brutal but valuable. Never ignore the little signs, those gut feelings that tell you something's wrong. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to fully repair. Be vigilant, especially if someone's hiding things from you: money, phone calls, secret meetings. And most importantly, don't be afraid to fight for yourself and your future, even if it means facing the ugly truth. To anyone out there going through something similar, stay strong. Don't let anyone manipulate or lie to you. Gather your evidence, protect your assets, and don't settle for the lies. It hurts, it's messy, and it's a long road, but you'll come out the other side. Sometimes, the only way to find peace is to face the chaos head-on and take control of your life again. That's what I did. And honestly, I'm starting to believe I'll be okay.